Hi, I'm Juliette Ferguson with Sotheby's International Realty, and I'm here today in Carmel, California with Kyle Krasa, Krasa Law.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
So today you're going to explain how to fund a trust?
That's right.
Eggs in a basket?
Eggs in a basket.
Okay.
That's the analogy I use. So revocable living trust is the most popular, most common type of structure to plan an estate, to be able to express your wishes about who should be in charge of your assets upon incapacity and upon death, and how your assets should be divided up. But although you want to spend a lot of time in drafting and putting together your trust, that's just the start of it. There's a whole other side, and that is called trust funding.
Yes, and I know a lot of trust attorneys don't do what you do.
Well, it's really important to make sure that a client's assets, once the trust is established, that their assets are transferred to the trust.
Right. So, otherwise, why did you pay for all
otherwise, otherwise, there's no point in having the trust at all.
Right.
And the analogy that I use, I usually say, picture your trust as an empty basket, and all of your assets, your bank accounts, checking, savings accounts, investment accounts, real properties, your home, rental property, whatever the case might be, they're all little eggs. And if you don't put the eggs in the basket, if all you have with your trust is an empty basket, in other words, nothing's titled to it, it's like you never did the trust to begin with.
Right.
So.
And I did have a different trust attorney before you, and I did not have the eggs in the basket.
So you thought you had taken
care
of everything,
safe, but I was not.
And if you had passed, you and Kurt had passed away, then we would have had a problem, right? And so the idea is to make sure that we transfer title, and depending on the asset, there are different things to do.
Right.
So, for example, if it's real property that's located in California, that would be a deed that your California attorney would be able to prepare for you, where you're transferring it from yourselves as community property or as joint tenants or whatever the case might be, tenants in common, to your trust. And you record that with the county recorder in the local county where the property is located.
Right.
If you have real property that's located in another state, I often will like to find an attorney in that state to prepare the deed, because there's so many different variations in state law. We want to make sure the deed's done properly, but I'll usually organize that and have the attorney in that state prepare the deed, and then we work with them to get that recorded.
Perfect, yeah.
And then other assets besides real property, so checking accounts, savings accounts, investment accounts. What you want to do is ask that the financial institutions change the signature card. So instead of having you as individuals, have you as trustee of your trust.
And we still I still sign Juliette Ferguson.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect the way that you relate with your assets.
Yeah,
right.
Our trust.
And it can have the trust name on the checks, or it doesn't have to. What's important is the bank's own internal records show that the trust is the owner. That's how the trust is going to work efficiently. There's some assets that are not placed in the trust while you're living on purpose, retirement plans, such as IRAs and 401ks and those kinds of things. Those are controlled by a beneficiary designation instead. But for the most part, you do want to, for every asset, you want to think about how is the asset titled, and do I need to transfer that into my trust, or do I need to create a beneficiary designation that will handle it and make sure it goes to the right person, free of any type of hiccup.
So if you forget, or you work with a trust attorney that doesn't do what you do and fund the trust for you, what are the negative ramifications?
Well, worst case scenario is you'd have to have a full probate, which is usually what a trust is intended to avoid. It's you'd have to go to court, or your loved ones would have to go to court. And again, the courts do a great job at probate. It just takes a long time, because they have to jump through certain hoops. You're bound by the probate code to go through certain hoops, and it just takes a long time. And the statutory fees are relatively high. So if you can avoid it, you'd rather do it. And that's usually the motivating factor of doing a trust, is to avoid probate.
That's why you pay to have a trust.
So then you pay to have the trust, you put it all together, but you don't put your assets in there, and you have a probate anyway. Well, what was the point of doing that?
Exactly.
Now, there are some things that you can do to kind of mitigate the circumstances a little bit. One thing you can do is you have a Schedule A. It's a list of assets. It's usually at the end of your trust. It's a list of the assets that you intend to put in the trust. So even if the asset, if say there's a house there and it's not actually titled to the trust, but there's something connecting that asset to the trust, you might be able to go, you still have to go to court, but show the judge that circumstance if no one's
At least
disputing that,
the intent's
intent's
pretty
there. It could be a shorter process than the full probate.
Sure.
Another thing is what I have in my documents as well is an all-purpose clause. I call it a magic wand provision,
Oh.
and it's basically.
I hope you put a magic wand in mine.
You have a magic wand in
Okay.
yours. So basically, the idea is that it's a statement that says any asset that I have that would be appropriate to place in my trust, I am intending to put it in there. So again, it's an expression of your intent. Still would likely require some sort of court involvement. In California, we call that a Hegstead petition, named after a famous case. But at least you have some backups. And so the best thing to do is make sure everything gets titled in there.
Okay.
And then the backups is to have like the Schedule A and the magic wand provision just as kind of a backup.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Any other words of wisdom related to this?
Well, I mean, I think it's just important to recognize that there's that second aspect of you always want to think about title. And sometimes you might do a really good job of titling everything that you had at that point that you created the trust. But then years go by and you acquire new assets, you open a new bank account, you get a new piece of real property, and you want to remember every time you take title, how should I title this asset? And unless it's one of those exception assets like a retirement plan, what I tell my clients is your new last name for titling purposes is comma trustee. Mm-hmm. That's the easy way to remember. Just remember every time you open up a new account, get a new piece of property, my new last name is comma trustee. That just allows you to have that memory in there to make sure I got to do something with the title of my asset.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Good.
Thank you so much for
You're very
explaining. I know our buyers and sellers, and not just our buyers and sellers, but people in Monterey County and people even in other states and other parts of California really appreciate to watch this free advice on free information for buyers and sellers, especially in Monterey County. And I just wanted to thank you, Kyle Krasa, attorney, for joining us today.
You're welcome. And I should know, of course, all of these videos should just be for general information. It's impossible to give, full legal advice in a short video. But the idea, of course, is to get people thinking about it so they can be prepared. They know that they should contact an attorney, and they have some idea, some background, so they could be a little more efficient, a little more confident when they talk to their attorney.
And just like learning and understanding that every realtor is not alike, every attorney is not alike, and you want to select a quality professional.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you again. Could you give your phone number?
Sure, my phone number is 831-920-0205, and my website is www.krasalaw.com, KRASALAW.com.
Perfect. And our phone number here at Team Jet is on Jet TV, Jet Ferguson Group at Sotheby's is 831-402-3800. Thank you.